This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Prime Minister says businesses must share the burden. He expects pharmacists to comply with price control changes. The Director of Public Prosecutions responding to criticism from the National Security Minister. And two shot on Andros, one man dead. We've got the latest. It's all straight ahead this morning. I'm Dwight Strachan, and this is Morning Blend.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. You know that it's here. It's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Good morning again, Bahamas. It's Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Again, I'm Dwight Strachan. In a moment, Laverne Gardner will be joining us. Also this morning, we'll be talking with the University of the Bahamas about some of the research that they've done recently, especially on corporal punishment in the country and marital rape. We'll get into all of that this morning, and that'll extend into Morning Blend business as well. But first, it's time for the overnight, the latest breaking news from while we're sleeping, and the top national and international headlines this morning. In the overnight, Prime Minister Philip Davis is saying he expects pharmacies across the country to come into full compliance with recent changes to price control in the coming days. The Prime Minister speaking during debate on a resolution to increase the minimum wage in the country from $210 to $260 per week, saying yesterday, quote, "We are very mindful of pressures facing Bahamian businesses. Similarly, when we added diapers and more food items to our price control list, we are signaling to businesses that we expect the savings from reduced customs duties to be passed on to Bahamians. Business owners will still make a profit, just a little less than they would otherwise. We have listened to their concerns and we have been flexible about some of the details. We'll continue to review the impact of price controls on both consumers and businesses, but the bottom line is the costs of this global inflation crisis must be a shared burden, not one that falls primarily on Bahamian families just working to get by. You have to share it. That's my cry to all involved." The Prime Minister, again, responding since the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association this week closed doors of many pharmacies across the country after it says it was not consulted before changes were announced and that new price control regulations specific to the pharmacy sector are untenable and not suitable, or sustainable rather, for the sector to operate for any length of time. The association said it met with the government after Davis announced the changes and later submitted a proposal to the government. On October 11th, the Prime Minister announced changes to price control items, including the reduction of the profit margin on price-controlled drugs. The changes took effect on October 17th. However, the government delayed enforcement after the BPA and the Retail Grocers Association raised concerns over the changes. The administration later announced that enforcement would begin on November 1st, but on Monday, BPA President Shantia McBride said the association never received a response from the government over its proposals, and pharmacies were closed on Tuesday after the association advised them to do so. Following criticism from Minister of National Security Wayne Monroe on the handling of cases by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Director, Garvin Gaskins, saying he looks forward to appropriately addressing any issues and deficiencies in the legal and law enforcement systems. He says, quote, "My team and I will continue to effectively press for the due advancement of the criminal justice system, having returned from 7 months vacation leave during the second week of September. I look forward to factual and progressive discussions with a view to appropriately addressing any and all interconnective issues and deficiencies in the legal and law enforcement systems." Tuesday, Monroe said police have expressed concern that the DPP is not aggressively appealing fines for bail offenders that see them released back on the streets. He also said police investigators felt disrespected when serious cases were not prosecuted by senior attorneys in the department, but defendants engage experienced lawyers, many of them KCs. F&M leader Michael Pintard calling for no-fault divorces in the country. Pintard making the comment in Parliament while expressing support for the White Ribbon Campaign, a global movement of men and boys aiming to end the scourge of violence against women and girls. Just a couple of months ago, right here on Morning Blend, Pintard said that the existing grounds for divorce were solid grounds. In statements that proved controversial, he stated that he believes a lot of people were making the decision to leave marriages for far too many frivolous reasons. The Town Planning Committee has approved a $200 million gated subdivision development for Adelaide, even after Environment Minister Vaughan Miller raised concerns at a recent public meeting about possible impacts to the environment. Committee Chairman Keenan Johnson told the Nassau Guardian yesterday that the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection has no objections to the project. He said they reviewed the application after the public hearing. 2 German men shot in Kemps Bay, Andros. Police say that one of the men died. It happened last night. Overnight. Officers on the scene confirming that they'll have a team headed to Andros first thing in the morning, according to Assistant Commissioner of Police B.K. Bonamy. He was unable to provide any details regarding what led to the shooting or where it took place. Commenting on the incident, Central, South, Andros, and Mangrove Key MP Leon Lundy called for justice to prevail. He called the news of the shooting quite distressing. And North Abaco MP Kirk Cornish says the Davis administration is more concerned about who will win this year's Junkanoo parades than what's going on with the illegal migrant situation on Abaco. Cornish, who was responding to Killarney MP Dr. Hubert Minnis, who suggested that the government is not listening to its 2 Abaco MPs on legal immigration on the issue. Cornish saying on a point of clarification in the House of Assembly that the North Abaco MP was not being listened to as it relates to the matter pertaining to illegal immigrants. He said, quote, "My Prime Minister, my leader, and my colleagues are certainly listening. We are far more concerned about who will win Junkanoo than what is happening in Abaco." Overseas, alarms blared from cell phones, radios, and public loudspeakers, and fishermen hurried back to the shore in northern Japan after North Korea fired an intercontinental ballistic missile over its eastern waters, adding to a recent barrage of provocative weapons demonstrations that officials say may culminate in a nuclear test in coming weeks. The test, which was followed by 2 short-range ballistic launches into the sea, swiftly condemned by North Korea's neighbors and the United States, which says it is willing to take all necessary measures to ensure the safety of the American homeland and allies, South Korea and Japan. The Biden administration also warning of unspecified additional costs and consequences if North Korea goes on to detonate a nuclear test device for the first time since September 2017. The launches are the latest in a series of North Korean weapons tests in recent months that have raised tensions in the region. They come a day after the North fired more than 20 missiles, the most it has launched in a single day ever. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said it detected that North Korea fired one of these weapons from an area near its capital, Pyongyang, at about 7:40 a.m., and then 2 short-range missiles an hour later from a nearby city that flew toward its eastern waters. And at least 5 children are among the 22 people confirmed dead in the sinking of a sailboat that had been carrying migrants near Greece. This is according to Greece's Coast Guard today. A search and rescue operation continues for a further 34 people still reported missing. Only 12 people, all men, have been found alive since the sailboat sank in the treacherous waters between the islands of Evia and Andros, east of the Greek capital. This happened in the early hours of the day on Tuesday. The initial 9 survivors had been found on rocks on an uninhabited islet and had told authorities that they'd been on a sailboat carrying about 68 people that had set sail from Izmir on the Turkish coast. They said the boat capsized and sank in rough seas. The initial rescue operation was conducted in gale force winds, an area notorious for rough seas. The Coast Guard said Thursday that a total of 22 bodies have been retrieved from the sea, including 5 children, 3 boys, and 2 girls, and 6 women. In sports, from the World Series, hammered the night before, Christian Javier and the Houston Astros desperately needing to find out how to keep Bryce Harper and the Phillies in the ballpark. And what did they do? Well, how about a no-hitter? Javier and Houston's bullpen combined on just the second no-hitter in World Series history, silencing a booming lineup and boisterous fans as the Houston Astros blanked the Philadelphia Phillies 5-0 Wednesday night to even the matchup at 2 games each. The only previous no-hitter in the World Series was a perfect game by Don Larson of the New York Yankees against Brooklyn Dodgers back in 1956. That's sports, and that's the overnight. Time for your first look at weather. In your weather for today, high pressure continues to dominate the weather across the country while tropical moisture is moving in from the west. And there is a slight risk of rip currents along easterly beaches in the southeast Bahamas. For all areas today, forecast calls for partly mostly cloudy and hot conditions with isolated showers or a thunderstorm over open waters. Cloudy and warm with isolated showers tonight. For boaters, small craft caution in effect in the southeast Bahamas. Winds east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots in the northwest and central islands, increasing to 15 knots in the southeastern Bahamas. Seas 2 to 4 feet in the northwest and central islands, but building 3 to 5 feet in the southeastern part of the country. Currently, it's about 78 degrees under partly cloudy skies in Nassau. Look for highs getting up to around 90 Fahrenheit, again, 32 Celsius Overnight lows tonight getting down to about 73 Fahrenheit, 23 Celsius. That's your first look at weather this morning. We'll have your extended outlook and a look at the tropics coming up after traffic in just a bit. It's time for a break, but when we come back, we're discussing the day's top stories right here on Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9, your home for fresh news and smart talk all day.
Fidelity, we're good for you.
We know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options. We're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
Wherever you're headed, the Custom Computers Know-How team is standing by to help guide you in the East and the West. We now have 2 convenient locations on Patton Street in Palmdale and our newest store in the Caves Village Shopping Plaza through the Blake Road entrance. Discover the latest products by top international brands and the knowledge you need to unleash tomorrow's technology today. Drop by Custom Computers out east or out west. We're open Saturdays from 10 till 4.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day. It's the start of a new way. You know that it's the start of the end of the old way. Wake up, it's a new day. It's a new day.
Welcome back to Morning Blend here on Guardian Radio 96.9. We are streaming live on GuardianTalkRadio.com and on the Guardian Radio app for smart devices. We're also on your televisions on Cable Bahamas Channel 969 and BTC Flow Channel 612. You can tweet us at MorningBlend969 or Facebook.com/MorningBlend969. Text us 422-4796, 422-GR96 on the Guardian Radio text line powered by BTC. Once again, I'm Dwight Strachan. Joining us now, Laverne Gardner. Laverne, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. Hope all's well with you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. We have a lot to talk about this morning. In our interviews, we're going to be talking with professors from the University of the Bahamas. Their research department has released the information from a lot of the surveys, the research they've been doing, and we're going to discuss some of that this morning, especially the findings on corporal punishment and on marital rape, 2 hot-button issues in the country. And we're going to get into that this morning. That's coming up, and that'll go into Morning Blend business as well. But there's a lot happening in the news. Let's talk about that right now. And in the news, big headlines in the papers. The National Guardian, businesses must share the burden. PM expects pharmacists to comply with price control changes. Another headline, PM, pharmacists must obey rules. Davis warns sector over price controls even as meetings are held. All right, so that is a big story. We're going to get into that in just a second, just a bit. But the news overnight, 2 men shot on Andros, 1 dead. We are learning the Germans, 2 German men in Kemps Bay. Overnight, and they're both shot, 1 dead. That's what we know so far. What this is all about, we don't know all of that as yet, but I'm sure we'll hopefully get some details over the next few hours. All right, so this is a confusing story here because it's when government officials use sarcasm, it's often lost in translation because we actually do believe the thing you're being sarcastic about. But anyway, so the headline, North Abaco MP says government is more concerned about Junkanoo than shantytowns. And so I'm like, what? Because we believe that. A lot of people believe that. Clearly, with the number of shantytowns and the news coming up, that's not something outside the realm of possibility, right? But he's being sarcastic, apparently. This is not appropriate at this time when right, Laverne? We talk about this every week.
Is he though?
Well, listen to this crazy story. So our Travis Cartwright Carroll writing about this is coming out of the House. North Abaco MP Kirk Cornish said yesterday, and he's a PLP, right? Says the Davis administration is more concerned about who will win his Junkanoo parades than what is going on with the illegal migrant situation on Abaco. This is important. The suggestion being that the situation is under control. Huh? Okay. Cornish was responding to Killarney MP Hubert Minnis, who suggested that the government is not listening to its 2 Abaco MPs on illegal immigration on the island. Now, Cornish said on a point of clarification in the House, quote, I also wish to clarify the assumption that perhaps the MP for North Abaco was not being listened to as it relates to the matter pertaining to illegal migrants in Abaco. My Prime Minister, my leader, and my colleagues are certainly listening. We are far more concerned about who can win Junkanoo than what is happening in Abaco. Someone shouted, yes! The members banged their tables and some laughed. What's happening? Was this a roast? Was it a multiverse
if
meeting
it was
of Parliament?
sarcasm, let me just say, first and foremost, if it was sarcasm, I live in Sarcasmville, complete fail.
Beyond a fail. I don't understand
Complete
it.
fail.
The laughing and banging the head.
Right.
This was a sketch. This was, and I think someone changed the channel. Anyway, okay, I don't understand. Central and South Abaco MP John Pinder recently told the National Guardian that shantytown structures on Abaco have grown significantly in the 3+ years since Hurricane Dorian destroyed large shantytowns. Pinder said there's a large shantytown in North Abaco close to Treasure Key. He called it a crisis situation and expressed concerns that the illegal migration population present a national threat. Right? So we remember this. We've talked about it, what Pinder is saying, and he says he's also said how the folks there, this is a new crop, a new bunch of people who are more aggressive than the ones who were there before and seem to not be controllable. I'm paraphrasing there. But he's been pointing to the crisis. But what Cornish is saying and the laughter that I just don't understand. From the Director of Immigration, Katira Ferguson, who said that the community grew from 50 acres before Hurricane Dorian to as much as 200 acres. In September, Cornish said the government should create a special task force to deal with the unregulated communities on Abaco. During his contribution to a resolution to increase the minimum wage in the Bahamas yesterday, Minnis said that, quote, we have a large number of undocumented people who do not abide by employment and wage laws. They sometimes drive wages down by taking whatever is given to them off the books. Okay. And he's calling this a troll. But this is what triggered the bizarre reaction from Cornish when in recent weeks, the 2 members of the governing side from Abaco have been quoted in the media expressing alarm over the immigration situation on that island. Perhaps their own government wouldn't listen to them, so they had to speak out in the press. And so he said that, and that got that response about we're more concerned about John Canoe. Okay.
I still don't get it. I mean, and if you say to me that it was sarcasm, I'll just go with that.
I'm assuming. I don't know.
I don't know how.
It might, again, people are thinking, well, that's what we believe. That's why there are protests. That's why people camping out in Rawson Square.
Right,
because they don't think you're taking it seriously.
Right.
So that's the worst. This is the worst bit of humor, attempts at humor at least, in a while. In a while. So I don't know what that's crazy. This is also interesting from the House. Michael Pintard, the F&M leader, calling for no-fault divorces. Isn't that interesting? Listeners to Morning Blend will recall just a couple of months ago when he was on the show, and I asked him about that. We were talking about marital rape and asking if he thinks we should have divorces. He said that the grounds were solid, the ones that we have now, the limited grounds were solid enough, and that people are trying to get out of marriages for frivolous reasons. And our Candia Dame's writing about this today, about how he's saying this. He said yesterday in the House, we should be in the business of ensuring that all men understand that the prosecution of abusive men who believe that there is no circumstances under which a wife can decline sex with her husband, they should know that this is a matter that must and will be resolved. And he went on to say we should be promoting and supporting divorce, especially if after all efforts are made to preserve a relationship, and if that fails, persons should have the right to go their separate ways. Now, when I asked about it, whether no-fault divorces should be allowed, given that some people may conclude they are just not compatible, otherwise, right? And before this results in a crime, Pintard says, no, couples, you remember this, couples need to try everything. They need to try to bring the spark back. And this is when he said the chandelier thing, remember that? He said, quote, if someone came to me and said, you know what, I'm not feeling my partner, and so I think I got to get out of this, my default position is to let's find some ways to spice up that relationship. Maybe you all haven't tried to swing from the chandelier. Maybe you need to go to one of our beautiful family islands, tremendous miles of beaches. You're secluded. Have you tried outdoors? I recommend other things. Yeah, that was
maybe that was sarcasm.
No. I was there. It certainly wasn't.
You interpreted it incorrectly.
After I picked up my jaw from the studio table, I think we went to a break. Oh, the members of Parliament, the wonderful advice we get from them. It's a miracle. We're going to be 50 next year. Wow. It's through the grace of God. Okay, so you remember this? Yesterday we were talking about this shocking comments from the National Security Minister, Wayne Monroe, who was publicly criticizing the Director of Public Prosecutions. And I was reminded after the show that the Director of Public Prosecutions was immediately sent on vacation after the administration came, the new administration came, almost 8 months vacation. So he just returned in September. Is that right? September? Yeah. So for the minister to be saying that they have an issue with the way that he is managing the office is interesting. So Garvin Gaskins, the Director of Public Prosecutions, is issuing a statement. In response to this, he said, my team and I will continue to effectively press for the due advancement of the criminal justice system. Having returned from 7 months vacation leave during the second week of September 2022, I look forward to factual and progressive discussions with a view to appropriately addressing any and all interconnective issues and deficiencies in the legal and law enforcement systems. If you don't recall, yesterday we talked about this. Wayne Monroe saying this was unbelievable to say this about an independent body and a public servant. Quote, we are not satisfied with his management of the office and what we are seeing, and we're going to have a conversation with him over it. He said that this was, he was going to call for the Minister of State for Legal Affairs to organize a meeting with himself, the Commissioner of Police, and Garvin Gaskin over the concerns that they had because he's saying that it's because of the directive public prosecutions why all these people are out on bail for murder, walking around here doing foolishness and getting themselves killed. And also the police are concerned that junior lawyers just out of law school are the ones trying the big cases up against prominent KCs. Yep. All right, so let's get your reaction to all of this before we go on to what the Prime Minister's saying to pharmacists. Let's get your views. 323-6232. 325-4316. 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. Boy, that's a lot, Laverne.
7 months is a long time to be on vacation. And well, I guess the stage is being set to my mind. So if in a month from now, if in 2 months from now, we understand that Mr. Gaskins is transferred or removed, the stage has already been set by this public statement. That's the way I'm thinking, I'm looking at it. Because for you to come and publicly voice your displeasure seemingly prior to you even having a meeting, because he's saying we need to convene a meeting, correct? So, yeah, the stage is being set.
Yeah. Well, something, I don't know, I can't recall if that position is one with tenure, if they are able to do that. I can look into
Something's going on.
Well, yeah,
because it that doesn't add up.
No, it's very clear what's going on. I mean, I mentioned it yesterday. Of all the people who Monroe says are complaining, all those people were appointed by the new administration.
Right.
And Gaskin was not.
And this happens, Dwight. Governments change things like this happen all the time. The minute you send Mr. Gaskins on vacation, or Mr. Gaskins, I won't say you sent him. That would be incorrect. I don't know that.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Right. But the minute Mr. Gaskin goes on vacation for 7 months, Dwight, I know, in certain government positions, government employees, vacation can accrue. But for you to send him on vacation for 7 months, no.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, look at where the complaints are coming from.
Absolutely.
That's another thing.
All right, let's go to the phone lines. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Well, it is Strachan, always along with you on, what's the name again?
Laverne.
Hey, Dwight, before I made my main point, Laverne took the word right out of my mouth when you had made that statement when she said it was suspicious. She used the word, I mean, it's meaning the same thing, I'm paraphrasing, but before she had said it, the only thing I had to do is what I want to say, right? What I don't understand Wayne Monroe. The thing is, the police always telling me they need cars, right? Sometimes they don't come when you have a problem, right? And he doesn't, there are nobody, which of course he's responsible for the police and those, there is nobody to put their foot down to cost these guys to do the things that are right, in which he are responsible for. You understand what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Yeah, man. He I don't know. Yeah, he amazes me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's take another call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. All right, 323-62, 325-4316, 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. Let's take another call, and then we'll get to your text message. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, morning, Mr. Strachan. Everything's good?
Good morning. All's well.
Morning to your guest. You know, Mr. Strachan, I wanted to say something about two to the topic you brought up. First topic I wanted to speak to the topic with County Town. And it's interesting how politicians seem to always play politics with the Shantytown population immigrant, the illegal immigrant issue, when at the same time, these guys have majority in parliament and they can make legislation to preserve the sovereignty of our country for our people. Instead of playing these political games every time a party comes in and flip-flop and does nothing for a whole term. My second issue is about the situation with, marital rape. I think didn't tolerate no form of abuse in our country. And I think that is, maybe a cause of, the problem with conflict resolution. I think that we need to find ways to resolve our conflicts, whether in marriages or in relationships, whether it be friends or however. I think that there should be no abuse. Hello?
Hi, we're listening. Mm-hmm.
And that's about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Just reading some messages here. Well, okay. This one here, it was Comedy Hour in Parliament. Oh, is that did anybody laugh besides the folks in there? Because it really certainly wasn't funny. This person says here, was it a hit at Menace who was seen at Junkanoo practice every Sunday with cowbells in hand? Okay. What was the what would be the point if that were the case? Who would that? Because you just said something like you said. Seriously? No, I mean, it could be, but I mean, that, as Laverne said, epic fail, right? That doesn't make sense because we actually don't think you're serious. If these have been around for decades and more are coming, even after you get up and say we're going to deal with it, and more come, like nobody cares what you say, we do think you care more about Junkanoo than shanty towns. Yeah. Don't joke about it. Because people wonder the same thing every day. You know what needs to happen for them maybe to get it? Maybe one of the shantytown communities need to form a Junkanoo group and go and participate and beat the groups, and then they'll say, "Oh, now we have a crisis." What do you? Anyway, caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. First time caller. How are you?
Welcome. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. I listened to the whole proceedings yesterday with all assembly. You're misquoting what that was said. That was concerning Dr. Minnis being more conservative, and the member for South Africa also said the F&M had Africa for 35 years and did nothing to deal with that immigration problem. That's why they banged on the desk, because it was a hit at Dr. Minnis. Oftentimes you all misquote things or twist the story. I just wanted to call to tell you people listening.
I mean, so what does that do for us? You hated Dr. Minnis. Who? First of all, people don't even check for him anymore. But I mean, what is the point? What will be the point? We have a crisis. You're making jokes, dumb jokes. Okay. All right, folks.
Okay, so now we have a little bit of clarity on the point. Can we just, because, yeah.
This is bad.
Where are we really going with that?
So you take the opportunity to do political swipes as opposed to...
Dwight, that's not a new thing, right? That happens all the time. So should we really be outraged? Because that's what's done. The points are made so that you could take a swipe at the person or a dig at the person who, commented from the opposing side. So this is what happens.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing new.
Well, hey, I hear you. Someone says here, this is the second time I recall a minister doing this. Remember de Aguilar saying in Parliament that he didn't know what value a senior employee of tourism brought to the team, unless the individual has committed some egregious act worthy of a public statement. This is not right. It's anti-leadership. Yeah, I don't recall them ever calling the name of the person, though. I'm not too sure about that. I think that one might be a little. This one says, "Are you guys?"
Again, the stage is being set.
Yeah. You guys are missing the message. We need to fix the justice system. But now you guys went political and defend Gaskin. We went political? Oh no, we didn't. We're not trying to defend Gaskin. We're saying this has been going on long before him. Long before. Many decades. The exact same thing's been happening. So to say it's all because of one person, no, the
Right.
issue is the courts, absolutely. But that's an unusual way to say it. They're scapegoating somebody for failures across the board. All of those things mentioned are real, indeed. The police are doing lousy investigations, flimsy evidence, and this is why so many people are getting off or getting bail or all these things, because you don't have enough evidence to charge this person, but the person's charged. And like, well, you got to, right? And also, everybody's getting bail, and they are junior lawyers because there aren't many senior lawyers left. They all go to private practice or go to form their own law firms, or as someone said yesterday, or go to the House of Assembly. Right? So, yeah, all you have are people just out of law school up against big-name KC person or a police prosecutor. These are major challenges, big, giant backlogs. What are we going to do about that? We blame the DPP for that too, or what? There are many issues. Everybody gets blamed here. To call out the one person is a bit strange. That's all. We're not making it political. It's been made political a long time ago. PLP trolls will defend any foolishness. Wayne Monroe and his lost administration looking for a scapegoat for the failed efforts against crime. This one says here, I'm laughing at us too, Dwight, because we've been falling for these games for 50 years. These people only go in Parliament to get rich and prolong an issue prolong problems, I guess. This has been going on for a long time. Yeah. It's a joke. Everything's a joke. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Dwight.
Hi, good morning.
Laverne.
Hi.
Yes, I'm Dwight and Laverne. This is a continuance of the status quo, government and system that we have in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, right? And in the words of KB, right, we continue to see jokey leaders, right, to the point that they take time to go in our House of Assembly to make jokes, right, rather than trying to conform to ideas or suggestion that will bring some type of peace or tranquility to this country, right? And I don't know if we can ever get to that point, right? And until we could get possibly away from these two administrations, these two parties that feel that they have the right to keep kicking the can down the road, the immigration can and the crime can, the poverty can. They continue to kick these cans them down the road, realizing or understanding that, we're dealing with humans. And until we have or elect persons, who are really serious in governing, right? We will continue to see the same drama that takes place inside our House of Assembly, or we need to formally call it House of Assembly and just call it Smoke Screen Center, because at the end of the day, they that's the only thing it seems that comes out of that place. Guys, have a nice day.
Okay, thank you very much. Continue to call in 323-6232, 325-4316. 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. Let's take another call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, guys. How are you all this morning?
Doing well. Good morning.
I'd like to ask you one quick point, and I have two quick points I'd like to make. Is the judiciary a part of government? Hello?
Yeah, you know that.
Does the police give bail for murder or attempted murder? Is that in the Bail Act?
Okay, let's make the points you're trying to make. We don't have much time. We're only here till 10.
The police doesn't give bail for murder or attempted murder, right? So I have to err on the side of the police, right? Because the judiciary is the ones that being lenient with some of these cases, okay? If they take long to bring the case to trial, definitely the person will get bail. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, but that's not what's necessarily happening. People are charged and we're out within months.
Well, they still have to go through the court system, and if they go through the court system, it's still up to the judge and to allow them to come out on bail.
Yeah.
Okay? It's no excuse for that. And another thing is, the point the person was making is that the last administration, which was the FNM administration, had Abaco for 35 years. That's the point, and that is the fact. Have a nice day.
Okay. Y'all are very funny in the Bahamas. I just want you to know. I want you to know. Because having a party having a place for decades means what exactly? Because does it mean
means
something?
that they had the opportunity to do whatever needed to be done, and if they did not do it, then they should not be pointing out the issues. That's what it means. You know that.
So that's across the board for all the whole country.
Always.
Because I can think of some seats have been held by somebody for many, many years now, and I can't say that they're the best constituency in the country. So is that how it works?
That is typically the rule of thumb. That's how it works.
That it won't improve. That it won't necessarily be that good.
But Dwight, you know that happens all the time. There's an issue. Whoever's in opposition will get up. They'll say, this is happening. Nothing's being addressed. And then the typical response is always, well, you had it for however long and you didn't do anything about the hole in the road. So you don't have the right to talk to me about the hole in the road. And, you know.
We wish it were like that. That's how real decentralized government would work, right? But we know it doesn't work like that here. Because Centerville, how do you explain that? You remember who had that for all those years? Remember that? You remember how that used to look? Still, many parts do look. Yeah. So let's be sensible. Okay. Dwight, you're the most negative person ever and getting worse. I agree. It's getting worse. I really need to do something about it.
I think you need to.
If I didn't have to talk about the same things every day, I think I would be better. But it's getting worse. Thank you, Texter. Thank you for noticing. This person says here, I'd say the situation with Diagler, what's happening here, was worse because it was later found that what's going on. Okay, I don't know if this is for this show. Oh, they're back to what? Okay,
right.
Oh, I see.
I think they're piggybacking off of what was mentioned earlier.
I see. Okay. This person says, name one meaningful crime or immigration bill that the crew has tabled in the past year. Even government departments are in shambles, but yeah, they're still blaming the former administration traveling and partying. Well, I don't want to defend them either, but they did try, did they not? They did try, and then that whole legal battle started, and that blocked up and held up everything for quite a while. But they weren't able to get much done. But they did try. But this is where we always are. So no administration has been any worse or any better, it seems. It's just going backward and intentionally paralyzed or paralyzed for some bizarre, strange reason on this matter. And it's only getting worse while everybody sits back and blames everybody else for nothing happening, right? So, yeah. All right. Yes, I need another vacation. Absolutely. I do. Oh, everyone's coming in. Vacation. Yes, trust me, I know. Coming soon. Okay. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what the Prime Minister is saying about the price control and what pharmacists need to do. Right? And so let's take this call and then we'll take the break. How about that? Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Dwight. How you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, this is a lesson for all politicians. Governments are continuous, right? The PLP and the Linden brought it to one point, and then came Ingram. And so government is continuous. No one needs to argue what you did or what you didn't do. Every government is supposed to be improving the country. So I don't think no one needs to row about that in Parliament. It is a continuous process. you know? So I saw them round, but that's unnecessary. You don't need to carry on with that. It's a continuous thing.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, let's take that break. When we come back, we'll get into what else is making news on this Thursday. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio, 96.9.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. Republicans are firing back after President Biden warned last night that democracy is at risk, calling out those he described as Trump supporters who are election. The AP's Tim McGuire.
In a speech Wednesday night, President Biden said democracy is under assault by right-wing Republicans following former President Donald Trump and his lies about the 2020 election and threats against next week's elections.
Trying to succeed where they failed in 2020, to suppress the right of voters and subvert the electoral system itself.
Biden adds hundreds of Republican candidates for Congress, state offices, and local offices deny the proven results of the 2020 election and are determined to control the outcome of future elections.
Among Republicans slamming the president's remarks, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who stands to be Speaker of the House if the GOP retakes control of the chamber. He tweeted, President Biden is trying to divide and deflect at a time when America needs to unite. Did you see it last night? The Astros pitched a no-hitter in the World Series. Michael Luongo was in Philadelphia.
The Astros made baseball history as 4 pitchers combined for just the second no-hitter in World Series history in a 5-0 Game 4 win over the Phillies. Allowed just 2 walks while striking out 9 through the first 6 innings. And Ryan Presley recorded the final 3 outs in the bottom of the 9th.
The World Series is tied now at 2 games each. Nobody won last night's huge $1.2 billion Powerball jackpot, but that is another chance for you to win on Saturday night, when the jackpot will be about $1.5 billion. Overseas, North Korea test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile as tensions rise in that region. This is AP News. What's it mean for you? The Fed raised its key rate 0.75 points. The AP's Ben Thomas with Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who says this.
We are moving our policy stance purposefully to a level that will be sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2%.
It's the 4th straight hike of 75 basis points, but Fed Chair Jerome Powell says there's still some way to go to fully tame inflation.
And incoming data since our last meeting suggests that the ultimate level of interest rates will be higher than previously expected.
Powell says the time is slow the pace, but
there's no sense that inflation is coming down.
And as for those increases,
it's premature to discuss pausing.
Ben Thomas, Washington.
One analyst says anybody borrowing money for a home or a car or a large appliance, for example, will feel the interest rate increase. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
Time for your first look at traffic for this morning, brought to you by RBC. For all of life's moments, there's one Visa Classic credit card. In your real-time traffic, we have heavy traffic on Mile Butler Highway as usual from Fire Trail, or even south of Fire Trail, all the way up to Tonic Williams Darling Highway. That's in northbound lanes there. Traffic is backed up along Fire Trail as well, eastbound to the roundabout at this hour. Glasser Road is also busy just north of Fire Trail all the way up to JFK Drive. We're seeing some building traffic on Carmichael westbound to Coral Harbor Road and eastbound to Blue Hill Road, which is seeing some building traffic near Carmichael and near St. Vincent, and also north of Soldier Road on the way to Independence Drive. East Street seeing some building traffic as well between Soldier and the roundabout with Independence Drive and East-West Highway. In Eastern New Providence, we've got Eastern Road seeing some heavy traffic just east of Fox Hill in the westbound lanes up to about Johnson Road, and pockets along Prince Charles Drive and pockets along Bernard Road, mainly westbound at this hour. That's what we're looking at so far. That's your real-time traffic and your Morning Blend traffic alert brought to you by RBC. Experience cashless purchasing power. RBC Visa Classic Credit Card. Manage your day-to-day expenses and apply today at rbc.com/Caribbean/Visa Classic. And at 7:39, time for another check of your weather for today. Here's what's happening. We've got high pressure that continues to dominate the weather across the country, while tropical moisture will move in from the west. There's also a slight risk of rip currents along easterly beaches in the southeast Bahamas. For today, your forecast for all areas, partly mostly cloudy and hot with isolated showers or a thunderstorm, turning cloudy and warm with isolated showers tonight. Small craft should exercise caution in the southeastern Bahamas. Getting up to a hot 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius. When will the cool weather bring? When will that come in? And overnight lows tonight getting down about 73 Fahrenheit, 23 Celsius. In your extended outlook, a strong area of high pressure will remain across the country this weekend with fresh to strong winds and hazardous beach conditions and sea conditions. An area of low pressure will deepen just to the east of the islands, and we're watching that one closely. For tomorrow, then, that will mean partly cloudy, hot, and breezy conditions with isolated showers and thunderstorms. Saturday, partly sunny, hot, and breezy with isolated showers and thunderstorms. We'll tell you more about that low-pressure system and another area of low pressure and what's happening in the Atlantic with two named storms. We'll give you all the details in our next weather check after the 8 o'clock news. Don't forget, we fall back this weekend. Sunday Standard Time returns at 2 a.m. We'll be back with more Morning Blend after these messages here on Guardian Radio 96.9.
Are you in practice operating from one location? Accepting payments from clients doesn't have to be complicated.
Introducing RBC MultiPay. Now each attorney can securely accept and settle payments with one point-of-sale device supporting multiple bank accounts.
With competitive pricing, training, and easy setup, you will be up and running in no time.
Call 356-8500 to sign up for RBC MultiPay.
I just linked up with this beautiful young lady, and she says she in love with me. She say even my internet making sense. When she come over, she say my signal strong, my movies ain't glitching, and when she use her computer, everything was smooth. The only problem is, I let her meet me by my boy house that day, and he got that BTC fiber internet speed bump.
Current fiber internet bundle customers now have as much as 3 times the speed. Totally free. Link up with BTC.
Do you want a chance to win one of 5 Yamaha Kryptonite scooters? Do you like the great taste of Frito-Lay chips? Well, all you have to do is purchase chips like Lay's, Doritos, and every grocery store, and you can enter to win thanks to Frito-Lay and Island Wholesale Scooter Giveaway Promotion. Want to know more? Join us at Extra Value Nassau Village November 5th, this Saturday from 1 to 3 p.m. for a chance to play Island Wholesale Shoot and Win game for instant prizes and a chance to win one of 5 Yamaha scooters. Frito-Lay, distributed by Island Wholesale.
Are you an attorney with a joint practice operating from one location? Accepting payments from clients doesn't have to be complicated.
Introducing RBC MultiPay. Now each attorney can securely accept and settle payments with one point-of-sale device supporting multiple bank accounts.
With competitive pricing, training, and easy setup, you will be up and running in no time.
Call 356-8500 to sign up for RBC MultiPay. Earning zero interest on your savings at the bank? With as little as $100, you can start earning interest on your money while you're sleeping, eating, or standing in line at the bank with the CFAL Savings Express Plan. Ready to invest? Start by putting mutual funds and earn interest there too. Because at CFAL, your interest is our interest. Visit CFAL.com to start now. CFAL, growing wealth for future generations of Bahamians.
I used to think of the bank as my personal ATM machine. If I wanted a new car, new furniture, a weekend trip to Miami, no problem. Just max out the credit card or top up my loan. I was a big baller until I realized that 75% of my salary was going to pay back all those loans. Fidelity's personal financial coaching was the best solution. Fidelity gave me a plan with a debt consolidation loan that has a built-in savings that pays 5% interest. I now only have one low monthly payment plus money in my pocket. Give Fidelity Bank a call at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit any of Fidelity's locations or visit a website at fidelitygroup.com.
Join Journey Rewards for free, and every purchase is another chance to win big monthly prizes like a cruise for two, plane tickets, free fuel, and so much more. Just scan, win, repeat. Fuel up or grab a snack or a drink at any Esso service station. Then scan the QR code to enter your purchase information. That's it. The more you enter, the more you can win. And win again. Journey Rewards. Scan, win, repeat. Free to join and easy to enter. Stop by an Esso service station and start winning today. The Esso brand is a trademark of ExxonMobil Corporation and is used under license.
The Water and Sewage Corporation advises its customers and residents residing in the area of Westlake Boulevard and Coral Lake Subdivision, inclusive of all side streets, that due to new water main installation, which will commence on Thursday, September 22nd, 2022, and continue for 8 weeks, customers may experience interruption in water supply between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily. Also during this time, there will be road closure and detour around the work area. Non-resident motorists are asked to avoid the area as much as possible. The corporation apologizes for any inconvenience caused as they work to improve their level of service.
When one says Rust-Oleum, one thinks Bahamian Paint. Bahamian Paint carries over 150 different Rust-Oleum spray products. I'm talking products like Rust-Oleum's textured finishes, you know, the leather effect, the antique look, or the hammered finish. Now we're talking about Rust-Oleum's tub and tile paint, chalkboard paint, and the dry erase board and a can paint. The inverted spray is used to mark sports fields, parking spaces, or foundations. And of course, the granddaddy of Rust-Oleum's rust-fighting family, Rust-Oleum's 9100 heavy-duty anti-corrosion coating that gives metal unmatched protection against the elements. That's why when one says Rust-Oleum, one thinks of Bahamian Paint. Harold Road and Mackey Street. Right now, get 20% off all cash sales through December 24th.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Maybe I need some rehab, or maybe just need some sleep. I got a sick obsession, I'm seeing it in my dreams. I'm looking down every alley, I'm making those desperate calls. I'm staying up all night hoping, hitting my head against the wall. What you got, boy, is hard to find. I think about it all the time. I'm all strung out, my heart is fried. I just can't get you off my mind. 'Cause your love is my drug. Your love is my drug.
We're back here with Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strachan along with Laverne Gardner. And moving on now to the pharmacists and what they're being told by the Prime Minister and the House of Assembly, speaking about this issue we've had with, I guess, is it a strike? What do you call it? Well, they've closed their doors. Apparently,
it's a protest.
Protest?
Right? It's a protest
Okay.
against what they believe is happening and strong arming by the government. So it's a protest.
Okay. So many were open yesterday, but the government's not really budging much on their stances. They're saying they expect the pharmacists to comply with the price controls. Travis Carey writing about it in today's National Guardian. Prime Minister Davis saying he expects pharmacies across the country to come into full compliance with recent changes to price control in the coming days. Speaking during a debate on a resolution to increase the minimum wage from $210 to $260 per week yesterday, the Prime Minister said, quote, "We are very mindful of pressures facing Bahamian businesses. Similarly, when we added diapers and more food items to our price control list, we are signaling to businesses that we expect customs duties to be passed on to Bahamians. Business owners will still make a profit, just a little less than they would otherwise. We've listened to their concerns, and we've been flexible about some of the details. We will continue to review the impact of price controls on both consumers and businesses, but the bottom line is the costs of this global inflation crisis must be a shared burden, not one that falls primarily on Bahamian families just working to get by. You have to share it, man. That's my cry to all involved." Or maybe you have to share it, man. Maybe that's how he said it. "You can't just leave it to the Bahamian families who are just working to get by and who are sitting at the table wondering which bill they should pay this week or not pay this week. That's all I'm asking. Let's share this burden. The new price controls on medications are in effect. Pharmacies will remain open, and we expect pharmacies to come into full compliance in the coming days. In raising the minimum wage and expanding price controls, my government is holding firm in protecting the interests of Bahamian people." So, what say you on this? You hear what the Prime Minister is saying, but you've also heard what the BPA, the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association, is saying. They're saying that with all those things that are happening, the minimum wage going up, the fuel price on going up, and that's, well, fuel across the board and inching up again, and the BPL rates going up as a result of the fuel surcharge. All of this, plus the global pressures with the shipping challenges and shortages, all of that is causing it to be more expensive for them to obtain the medications that they're selling, and to bring down the profit margin on that will mean they will have very little to pay people and pay their bills themselves. But the government said this is only a short-term measure, 3 to 6 months perhaps. At the same time, the association has said, well, why don't you take the VAT off the medications that you just put on? Because they weren't on before. We've not heard from the government on that one. And at the same time, the Retail Grocers Association, last thing we heard, they weren't going to be adjusting their prices because they feel they're still in negotiations with the government. So what's your reaction to all of this? We understand, I can definitely, all sides on this, everybody, including the consumers, feeling lots of pressure. So what happens next? 323-6232. 325-4316. 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. Let's hear what you have to say about it. Laverne, what's your view of there? What do you make of it before we get to the calls?
It's difficult. You know, I'm like you. I can appreciate what everybody's saying. So I don't know if there is a clear-cut solution. Everybody's feeling the pinch. Business owners are feeling the pinch, just like the public, the general public. Their customers are feeling the pinch. So it's difficult for me to just come right out and say, oh, okay, they should absolutely do this and there shouldn't be any pushback. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. You know, I guess we're just trying to navigate the best that we can. Try to find a solution that's workable and livable for everybody.
Absolutely.
But there isn't going to be any clear-cut winner.
No.
And we're seeing prices climbing. It's hard. It is hard. It is hard. And, you know, maybe the government should have considered taking VAT back off medication. that would have been a help, eh?
Well, if you notice, is that one of the things that the Prime Minister says, did I read that just now? Let me read it again. I think I read it earlier. Let's go back to that. So he's suggesting here that they've made some changes, but they're not really seeing these adjustments being handed down to the consumers, right? He said, where was that? About diapers. Yeah. Well, yeah, I did read that again. Okay, so when we added diapers and food and more food items to our price control list, we're signaling to businesses that we expect the savings from reduced custom duties to be passed on to Bahamians, right? So, but at the same time, the wholesalers who we had on a couple weeks ago and the retailers are saying that the cost of those things have gone up. So even if the duties are, the cost is now higher than it was a year or two ago. And so you might say all these retailers or wholesalers are swallowing the savings from the removed duty, but they're saying there wasn't any saving because the price has gone up. And if you order online, you will see that things are not what they used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I'm an online shopper, so
right.
Yeah.
So that's clearly happening. We've been hearing that from everybody. The prices have gone up across the board. Every country is seeing inflation, and so there's little savings for anyone these days. But caller, what say you on this? Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Glenn.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with your producer, and you were talking about shopping online. The beautiful thing is, I think he's going to take a stab at US 30 and get about 20 pips and do well, because I think he's looking at it the way I see it. But I tell you about this thing about a rock and a hard
understanding what you just said.
We are spending more money. Sorry?
I didn't get anything of what you just said. What was that?
Well, no, that was your producer. I tell him, sell US 30 and make some money, because I heard you're buying online. Well, you can make money online.
I see.
You don't have to be giving away money online. You can receive.
Okay.
It works that way, too. So look at that. But I'm talking about this between a rock and a hard place that we are spending more money in this country and always been than we earn, right? So it's quite obvious that we're going to continue to be in a deficit and always want to take money from the poor people, because that's really where it goes. Do you know what percentage of that represents $100,000 of revenue for the government, sir?
I don't. I can't.
Well, I think it would be nice if the Bahamians, because I don't want to take a stab at it and then somebody say I said something wrong. We should get an actuary on board to educate the public. Whenever VAT goes up 1% on an item, how much money does that represent? I heard it was around 100,000, maybe 200,000. But we need to see exactly where this money is going, because if we got to spend money to repatriate, spend money to take care of, a lot of people who really aren't contributing to the system, we are never going to rise. And we're going to continue to sink probably before global warming gets us at the rate we're going. What do you think?
It's quite possible.
It's quite possible.
It's going to consultants too. But yeah, it's going all over the place. Thank you very much, caller. Appreciate it. Let's take another.
Hey, what are you doing?
Hi, doing well.
Oh, yeah, we are at a time where the government's supposed to be treading water. But what they've done under the guise of fulfilling an election promise, is that they have reduced the profit margins, and also they have increased the wage ceiling. Now, I don't know if they understand that the same persons that they are decreasing the profit. They are decreasing, these margins, or the same persons who want to have to pay like minimum wage. Because I think we need to understand where we are, and I think if there's one thing this government has to do, they have to give the economy time to recover. It's kind of simple. It's kind of simple to me, But I think I believe, I think Minister Halkitis probably has to take a firmer hold on this economy and use the expertise he has, and inform the Prime Minister, of what the real world problems are here.
But very interesting.
Anyway, I guess we can see.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, let's read some messages before we go to the news. This person says here the government next needs to price control the loan rate on commercial banks. Car loan 10% max, mortgage loan 5% max, vacation loan 10% max, school fee loan 6% max, and business expansion loan 5% max. That's who really needs price control. Oh boy, okay. All right. This person says here, the Prime Minister is a big hypocrite. He wants the pharmacists and grocery store owners to obey the rules, but his dark day administration wouldn't obey the Rule Act. We still don't know how many millions and millions of dollars in contracts were given out from September 16th last year. Well, this one says here, so quite naturally, Prime Minister Davis, has instructed that his law firm begin charging reduced rates and inviting those who cannot pay the full amounts to come in for discounts. That's what I've gathered from his comment. If he's asking for them, he might as well ask everyone else and lead by example. Well, another text. I totally agree with the Prime Minister. Finally, we have a Prime Minister who's standing up against these big companies in the interest of the small man. Yeah, okay, I hear you. Well, those big companies say they aren't quite as big as you think, and soon they'll have to lay off the small man and shut their doors. Then what? That's what they say. Whether you believe them or not, I don't know. But hey, we're going to take a break for news and be back. This is Morning Blend on Guardian Radio 96.9.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Welcome back to Morning Blend here on Guardian Radio 96.9. We're streaming live on GuardianTalkRadio.com and on the Guardian Radio app for smart devices. We're also on your televisions on Cable Bahamas Channel 969 and B. You can tweet us at Morning Blend 969 or Facebook.com/Morning Blend 969. Text us 422-4796. And now at 8:20. Time for another check of your weather for today, brought to you by Bahamas First Insurance. Here is what's happening. We've got high pressure that continues to dominate the weather across the country, while tropical moisture will move in from the west, and there's also a slight chance of rip currents along easterly beaches in the southeast Bahamas. For today, forecast calls for partly to mostly cloudy and hot conditions with isolated showers or a thunderstorm. Cloudy and warm with isolated showers tonight. For boaters, small craft should exercise caution in the southeast Bahamas. Temperatures today, it's going to be another hot day. Highs getting up to around 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius. Overnight lows tonight getting down about 73 Fahrenheit, 23 Celsius. In your extended outlook, a strong area of high pressure will remain across the country this weekend with fresh to strong winds and hazardous sea conditions. An area of low pressure will deepen just to the east of the islands as well. So for Friday, tomorrow, partly cloudy, hot and breezy with isolated showers and thunderstorms. Saturday, partly sunny, hot and breezy with isolated showers and thunderstorms. In the tropics, we've got Martin and Lisa, Hurricane Martin and Tropical Storm Lisa. We'll give you the latest on those in just a bit. But we're also watching a low-pressure system just several hundred miles east-northeast of Bermuda. That has a low 10% chance of formation through the next 5 days. Then this is one we're looking at. A complex area of low pressure expected to develop this weekend over the southeastern Atlantic. The system has about a 30% chance of formation through the next 5 days. With Martin and Lisa, Tropical Storm Lisa continues to move further inland across Central America and weaken. As of 5 o'clock this morning, Lisa, now a tropical storm, was about 125 miles west of Belize City and is moving toward the west at 10 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds have decreased now to about 45 miles per hour. Additional weakening is forecast while the center remains over land, and Lisa is expected to weaken to a tropical depression later today. Hurricane Martin expected to become a large and powerful post-tropical cyclone later today. It's about 805 miles west-northwest of the Azores, or about 665 miles east-southeast of Cape Race in Newfoundland. Martin is moving rapidly toward the north-northeast at 46 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds are near 85 miles per hour, and Martin should continue to grow larger and slightly stronger today when it transitions into a large and powerful post-tropical cyclone. So in this final month of the hurricane season, still some interesting things happening, but that is your Morning Blend weather check brought to you by Insurance, still the first and only local insurance company and agency network that lets you buy car and home insurance 100% online. Try it at bahamasfirst.com. And time for another check of your traffic for this morning, brought to you by RBC. For all of life's moments, there's one Visa Classic credit card. In your real-time traffic, we've got a number of hot spots to tell you about. We've got a lot going on Milo Butler Highway, heavy traffic from well south of Fire Trail in the northbound lanes all the way up to Tawny Williams Darling Highway. And traffic is backed up along Tawny Williams Darling Highway as well. Well, it's definitely busy as you approach the roundabout from especially eastbound, heading toward it, and westbound as well. So that's an area you might want to avoid if you can. Gladstone Road's also busy northbound Drive. Further up, you'll see issues as you approach the six-legged roundabout from multiple directions, northbound on Milo Butler Highway and eastbound on JFK Drive as well. Then we've got Blue Hill Road. We've got some issues near St. Vincent Road and building traffic between Carmichael and just north of Soldier Road as you make your way to Independence Drive, which is backed up in both directions, east and westbound, towards the roundabouts. East Street seeing some heavy traffic near Soldier Road and on the way to the roundabout with East Street, East-West Highway, the East-West Highway, and Independence Drive. And further north on the way to Robinson Road. Elsewhere, we've got Eastern Road, heavy traffic westbound, east of Fox Hill all the way up to Johnson Road, and Prince Charles Drive, multiple locations there with heavy traffic westbound at this hour. Those are your hottest spots. That's your real-time traffic and your Morning Blend traffic alert, reminding you, letting you know that there is a float parade tomorrow celebrating National Public Service Week, and there are going to be some issues, and you might want to avoid it. That parade expected to start at about 10, but there is a prejudging ceremony going on from 8 o'clock, so it's going to be a number of areas where you might need to avoid. We'll tell you more about this tomorrow, but definitely the parade is going to be along Western Esplanade and Saunders Beach to Prospect Ridge and JFK Drive onto University Drive tomorrow. But start planning for that now and how that will affect your commute tomorrow. But that's your Morning Blend traffic alert, brought to you by RBC. Experience cashless purchasing power and chip and pin security with your RBC Visa Classic credit card. Manage your day-to-day expenses and apply today at rbc.com/Caribbean/Visa Classic. Welcome back to Morning Blend here on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strachan with Laverne Gardner. And this morning, we're going to be talking about some research at the University of the Bahamas, some interesting findings from some of the research on marital rape. We'll get to that in a moment. And on corporal punishment. And here to talk about this, we're very pleased to welcome back to the show from the University of the Bahamas. We have William Fielding, and we're expecting Dr. Nyambi Hall-Campbell-Dean as well. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
All right. So can we begin? Let's begin with the corporal punishment, and then we'll get into the marital rape issue. But before we get to it, let's talk about the research at UB and how much research is being done. That's always a question that people have, and how this works exactly, the process, what you just released a few weeks ago, and how often we're going to be seeing studies like this going on.
All right, thank you. Yes, this, as probably people don't understand, there's a lot more research that goes on at the university than sort of meets the public eye. This is because academics tend to publish their research in academic journals, and they tend to be very specialized, and the publications that the academics write are designed, really, their primary audience is for fellow academics. And so they tend to be rather difficult for, if you like, the man in the street to understand unless they have a very strong background in that particular subject. So they're not particularly friendly, if you like, for many people. So there will be a lot of research that's published in fairly what we might describe as obscure journals, if you like, but that doesn't mean to say that they're not important journals. And there's a wide range of research that's being done, whether it's in the natural sciences or in the social sciences. And of course, the area that is quite often overlooked is that of liberal and fine arts, when the professors from the School of English, they write some very interesting various aspects of books and the way they portray certain elements, characters, and so on. So there's a wide range of research that is being done. We recently published the 28th, I think it is, volume of the International Journal of Bahamian Studies. And that is, if you like, our own journal that we curate. We've created this journal to form a space, if you like, in the academic literature for articles of various types which have a very clear bias or relationship with the Bahamas, because although there are thousands of journals in academic journals, there's none with a focus on the Bahamas. And so we felt that we should create this journal to make a space for people who wanted to write, first and foremost, about the Bahamas, even though, of course, the implications of those studies may go beyond the Bahamas. So we wanted to create a space for not only scholars at the university, but international scholars. And in this particular journal edition that came out a week or so ago, there was a paper there on groundwater in Grand Bahama following Hurricane Dorian, which had a very large international component of scholars from around the world.
Wow.
So it's the title is definitely justified.
Okay, all right. So how often will we see that journal being published? What can we expect?
We aim to publish that journal once a year, that's typically published during what we call Open Access Week, because the journal is free for anybody who has access to the internet to download. So you can read the articles at no cost.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. All right. So we will get to the findings about marital rape and sexual assault and abuse in a bit. But let's begin with corporal punishment, if you don't mind, William Fielding. I don't know if anything surprising came out of that, but let's talk about it with the impetus behind the study and if you feel there was anything surprising before we look deeper at the numbers.
All right. Yes, thank you. Well, as you know, corporal punishment is deeply ingrained in society. We use it a lot to correct the behavior of children, behaviors which we might find deficient, perhaps that might be a good word. And so we've done a number of studies on corporal punishment. Shane Brennan did a study, I think it was in 2010, which has been, if you like, a series, first of a series of papers that the university has undertaken, looking at corporal punishment. In key in all of this is one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, what do people understand what they're doing when they hit a child, and is that punishment excessive? Does that punishment go beyond what maybe is intended, and what are the ramifications for that? So the international literature, or what we found in a previous study, was that those countries where corporal punishment is of children is illegal, their creativity of those countries is higher than where the children are legally can be hit. And so there's a relationship between the use of corporal punishment and creativity, which of course is important.
How is that being measured? How do they measure that?
Well, they measured that. There are some international indexes of what they call peace, and there's also international indexes of what they call correspondingly sort of violence. And so when you plot that out for those countries which where corporal punishment is not legal, there's a very clear relationship. Unfortunately, we don't have the index for the Bahamas for us to know where we fit that in, but relationship exists. And so, of course, if we want to enhance creativity, which is essential for entrepreneurship, and therefore the economic well-being of the country, this is something that might be a cause for concern.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about the findings. And I know that when the National Guardian reported on it, they focused on on Christianity and whether this influences the view that people have on corporal punishment. Was that a key component to the study?
Well, yes, because our previous studies had indicated people had quoted us various Bible verses as a justification for using corporal punishment to train their children. And so we wanted to see how extensive this was. Was it just, if you like, a few voices that quoted, usually very accurately, the verses from the Bible in justification for using corporal punishment? And there had been a study done in the 1960s on Andros, which showed that those participants in Congo town, those people who, as the authors described it, they had a spiritual beliefs, a spirituality. They used that spirituality basis for hitting children for corporal punishment. But the key thing with corporal punishment, that the literature and our studies from the university show, is that hitting a child with an object is something that needs to be avoided, because there's a big distinction between hitting the child with a hand and hitting a child with an object. And the literature shows that once you start hitting a child with an object, you raise the risk of that child being abused. And of course, it's the abuse that needs to be avoided, because that has long-term detrimental impact on the child.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
So, I'm sorry, Dwight. Yep. I have a question, Mr. Fielding.
Good morning.
Good morning. The study is saying then, just so I'm clear, if you are going to use corporal punishment as a form of discipline, it is better to use the hand than to use, let's say, a belt or a paddle or whatever.
Yes, that's what the literature would say. And when we've asked people whether they hit with a hand or hit with an object, then things start to go downhill. You hitting a child with an object. And the thing is, when we it's not in this study, but in a previous study, the list is really may be a cause of concern. I mean, for example, some respondents will say that anything that comes to hand, and so that that's obviously very, you might say that's rather concerning, because if it's an electrical cord or something rather heavy or potentially dangerous, that can also be used. So we need to be careful with that. And the thing is that in the current study, which we've just completed, I think the important piece that we have to recognize is that many people do not see corporal punishment as an act of violence. And so although a number of people said that people should be able to live without fear of violence, and of course that is one of the basic human rights, that doesn't necessarily that applies in their view less so to children, and they don't see that corporal punishment is an act of violence. And so what they've done is to create a disconnect between the act and the, if you like, the circumstance. And so, of course, if I hit you, the justification for that could vary, but the act still remains the same.
Yep. All right. So the study was called "The Bahamian Justification for Using Corporal Punishment Within the Home: A Christian Habitat?" Right? How many people took part in the survey?
We had about 1,700 people who entered the survey, and obviously we had some people who shouldn't have answered the survey. They might have been living outside of the Bahamas or have been underage, because typically we're only allowed to do research on adults. The ethical police, the institutional review board of the university lays down terms and conditions, if you like, that we have to comply with. So we had about 1,570 people who we retained in the survey. So it was a substantial number of people.
Yeah. And what was the breakdown in terms of men, women, and other demographics that you can tell us about?
All right. Well, typically we in internet surveys, because this was done during COVID, we tend to get a majority of people who are females, and we do tend to get, because we're using students, we do tend to get younger people rather than older people involved. But we can take those imbalances into account so we can try to account for that, so that it shouldn't really be much of an issue. But it's very interesting how it's quite difficult in surveys to get the men involved. The men seem to be fairly reluctant to get involved.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. They
Yes.
certainly call talk shows more than women, but not surveys. Okay. All right. So overall, what were some of the findings? What did you learn?
So yes, we put in this word, a Christian habit, because there is a big distinction between the views of people who are active in a Christian denomination compared to the group which is not active in a Christian denomination. So we need to I think that's an important thing for us to appreciate. But of course, the Bahamas is dominated by those people who profess to follow some Christian sect. And that's quite interesting because, of course, many other countries, that's not necessarily the case. And so we felt that it was important for us to look at what might be happening within the Christian group, to see how their views might change, what might influence what their attitudes were towards corporal punishment, and also to find out a little bit about how they said that they were with the Bible and how they interpreted the Bible. And there does seem to be a relationship between how the respondents interpreted the Bible. Did they interpret it in a very literal way or not? And that's, if you like, the readings of the Bible, the way that they read it, seems to influence their attitudes towards corporal punishment. So there's obviously quite a complex dynamic there, which needs to be further explored, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And 68% or so of the people who took part in the survey identified as Christian. Is that right?
Oh no, I know it's far more than.
Okay.
68. Oh yes, it was closer to 80 or 90%.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
It's much higher. So, and that's right. 92% believed in the existence of the Lord God. And that would fit in with what you would find, say, in the census, where there are very few people who don't fall into a Christian sect, a Christian community of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so almost everybody, 80-something%. Wow. All right, so overall, what were they saying about corporal punishment?
So it's very interesting because you get, there seems to be sort of two extremes, if you like. You get the attitude of, I was hit as a child and I turned out all right, and those pieces of punishment. But that statement itself, of course, is an interesting one because it's one that you cannot test. You can't do a piece of research where you have two identical people and one you submit to corporal punishment and the other you do not, because there are not two me's. So I was hit. It's my view as a child. I was subject to corporal punishment, and as it's my view, but I turned out all right. But we don't know how you might have turned out had you not been hit. So that's what we would call an untestable hypothesis. It's a statement that we can't actually get hold of. But there is a...
And we might need to survey other people to find out if you did indeed turn out all right.
Well, what does turn out all right?
Right, exactly.
Right. What does that mean? What is...
Others will disagree.
Right.
But people's perception to some extent is their reality. So we need to recognize that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, what is interesting is that the people in the study, when they experienced corporal punishment as a child, in this particular study, as many as 25% thought that their corporal punishment that they experienced was abuse. Wow. And then we had 6% who said they needed to get treatment for their physical injuries. And then we had we also had 10% who said they needed help with their mental injuries. And this figure of 6% for physical injuries is a figure that we've come across in previous studies. In Shane Brennan's study, I think it was about 4% who said that they felt on retrospect that they had been abused. And in her study, she tried to find out what people were telling us when they say that they are abused. What does that mean in our context? And in her study, abuse was really sort of being beaten black and blue, or basically almost requiring medical attention, which of course in other places would be regarded as grievous bodily harm. So these are the most extreme cases where people have suffered at the hands of somebody under the guise of corporal punishment. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is the group of people who are going to demonstrate difficulties later on in life, because the literature shows that excessive corporal punishment has, and Nyambi is with us now, Dr. Hall Campbell, she would know more about this than me, but it starts to affect people's cognitive abilities, and it has longer term implications when we get into this excessive use of corporal punishment, right, which of course is usually going to be associated with an object.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Naomi Hall Campbell, Dean, feel free to jump in here, but is there an indication that attitudes are changing? Because we are hearing, it seems, more than ever before about sparing the rod, spoiling the child, and how this is why the country's in the state it's in, because corporal punishment has largely been removed from schools, or neighbors don't have the right now to just whip you if you're doing something crazy in the neighborhood. Are things changing, or are we pretty much where we were 20, 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I think that's a really good question, Dwight. I think that would probably be the follow-up study. William, sounds like you have a research. The follow-up study, right, to see where our perceptions of corporal punishment are now with this generation. I think one of the things that's important to note, however, when we are talking about corporal punishment, is that punishment does not teach correct behavior. Punishment only serves to stop or delay behavior, right? So even if there is a behavior that you intend to curb or stop through corporal punishment may stand to stop that behavior, but you still have to go behind the punishment and teach what the correct behavior is, right? You still have to go and demonstrate what it is that you want that individual to do, as well as what you want them to stop doing. Mm-hmm. So corporal punishment alone is not necessarily the answer. And that might be the reason why we feel like, things are still out of control, or or not feel like, but see, the violence and the levels that we are seeing it, because we are not necessarily teaching the behaviors that we want to portray in our society.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that lots of people are saying the Bible justifies the behavior. What percentage of the folks in the survey agreed with that?
That group that strongly agreed with it, about 35% of them strongly agreed with it, and another 40% agreed that the Bible uses. So for corporal punishment, it was 33% strongly agreed and 37% who agreed. So you've got nearly 70% there. Of the people feeling that the Bible justifies the use of corporal punishment. Mm-hmm. And so this is probably demonstrates why it's such an ingrained reaction that people have, that there is a spiritual, if you like, justification for this.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's also noting that boys are more likely to be the recipients of corporal punishment than girls. That's also not surprising. But what does that say about how we deal with boys versus girls in our society?
I guess I'll go with that one. I think it speaks again to this, what I was saying earlier in regards to how we perceive what the desired outcome that we intend with for behavior. I think that a lot of times, especially with young boys, they may engage in behaviors that more often than girls that we want to stop, right? They may run up and down more and not necessarily be as receptive to verbal communication. And so that we perceive that the only way to engage the young men is through corporal punishment. Mm-hmm. And so I think that might be what is happening there, and that they demonstrate behaviors that we want to stop more. And so therefore they get punished more.
And what this study also showed was that the boys were more likely than girls to be hit with an object. Mm-hmm. And therefore the boys are more likely to be at risk of being abused. And then when we look at the profile of the people in the prison and the profile of people who are not in prison, we find, of course, that typically the men, because most of the people in prison are men, but they have been subject to far more violence in their lives than the man who is not in prison. And so you can start to see action between having had a violent upbringing, if you like, or potentially so an abusive or experiencing violence, and that violence may be carrying through to adulthood, and that violence being, if you like, inflicted upon some other person.
All right. Let's get your reaction to what you're hearing, folks, and maybe you've read the study in the paper as well. 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us 422-4796. We're talking with William Fielding and Dr. Nambi Hall Campbell-Dean with the University of the Bahamas. Let's take this call. Good morning, call. You're on the air.
Golly, this is Dr. Weiss, along with you and your partner, Dwight.
Hi.
I have a couple of questions for the gentleman. Now, first, I want to agree with him something that what he said, whereby it stopped people from moving ahead, so to speak. When I was going to school, right, I wanted to be a medical doctor. And a girl was sitting in front of me, and she had a mole on her neck. And I wanted to find out if she could feel through that mole. And I touched her on the mole, and I got ribbon for that, all across my back, right? So it happened. So my mother took me to a private school after that happened, and I was unable. I lost interest, in other words. But what I am saying is, right, even today, I have 3, right, children. And sometimes when the children behave rude, I just say to myself, I talk to them, right? And I just say to myself, why couldn't the principal just didn't talk to me? You know what I'm saying? So what I want to ask you, of course, they still teachers, they still do corporal punishment in some schools today, but by the head mistress or some of that sort. But what I want to ask you, right, do you go to the schools and make people to know, the teachers and stuff to know that, you know, it's wrong and stuff like that? Do you do that?
No, we haven't done that. I mean, there is what they call the Safe Schools Protocol of the Ministry of Education, which regulates the use of corporal punishment in school. And we did do a study that looked at the impact of that protocol in the schools, and you can see that the implementation of that protocol has reduced the use of corporal punishment in schools, and so you can see that the ministry has been successful, if you like, in regulating and overall reducing the use of corporal punishment in schools. A previous study that we did a literature review where we looked at the use of corporal punishment in schools over time and attitudes towards that. And in the 1970s, for example, corporal punishment was actually seen as a way of instilling fear into the students because discipline, a quiet class, was regarded as a good class. And so that seems to have been an emphasis some time ago. But I think that there's now an appreciation that creativity and getting people to not responding as you were obviously a creative child, you wanted to find out something, and although you may not have done it necessarily in the best way, you did it as a child would, and you were taught not to be such an investigative child, and so that is really what you learned from that experience.
Indeed.
Mr. Fielding, did the study speak to when corporal punishment is inflicted, like which infractions maybe the people that you surveyed experienced corporal punishment? Well, if I didn't do my homework, it wasn't corporal punishment, but if I lied, it was corporal punishment. Did it make a distinction between when that happened?
Yes. Now we did that in another study, which was a little while ago, and I can't remember exactly what it was. But there were all sorts of things for which people were disciplined. For example, not having the books, not having a uniform, being late. There was a wide variety of things, but you did get the impression that sometimes people appeared to be getting themselves into trouble, probably because they were bored in class. That was the impression, but that would require another study of itself. There were in a previous study, and I say I hadn't prepared for that one. There was quite a number of different reasons why they were disciplined. Talking in class, distracting others, that sort of behavior was not being tolerated.
This texter here says, I'm listening, but I don't know. I've never been beaten by my parents, but I have 5 of them has gotten a good cut hip from me. But this was after talking and trying to get them to do the right thing. Okay. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that one there, but some people feel it's their last resort. They've tried everything, and nothing seems to work. And what's the danger in that?
I think that when we look at the use of corporal punishment, that overall, that the main question should be, what is the goal? Right? What is it that you are trying to achieve? Is the punishment coming from a place of exasperation, you being frustrated, you being tired, and you wanting to lash out and demonstrate your exasperation? Or are you trying to specifically stop a certain behavior, right? Like if a child is putting themselves in a dangerous position, they're about to run into the middle of the road or stick their finger in a socket, and you, right, corporally punish them in that moment to demonstrate that behavior is something that needs to be stopped immediately, right? I think that there are spaces and times in which corporal punishment may be more effective than other times, but that there are also spaces in which teaching the correct behavior is always going to be more effective, right? That once you have to teach what it is that you want to happen and know very specifically when you are using corporal punishment and why you are using corporal punishment.
All right, we're going to break for news. When we come back, more on this. We're getting a lot of great text messages and some more calls, and then we'll get into the study involving marital rape as well. We're going to get into all of that with William Fielding and Dr. Nyambi Hall Campbell-Dean when we return in just a bit. Stay with us, folks.
Did you get the speed bump? All BTC subscribers with a bundled fiber connection receive the speed increase, totally free and totally automatic. It's just another way of ensuring that we are delivering best value to our customers, keeping them on the leading edge of everything awesome. Link up with BTC to get your speed bump today. Visit any BTC store or btcbahamas.com to learn more.
With all the fiber you need, link up.
Know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options. We're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
It's been 35 years since Custom Computers was founded, and we'd like to celebrate that milestone by thanking you, our clients and customers. You've inspired 35 years of expert service and support, partnering with the world's leading brands like HP, Apple, and Microsoft. We take pride in setting the bar for what you expect and deserve from a homegrown Bahamian business. We're here to serve you when you need us, so call 396-1101. Custom Computers, raising the standard since 1987.
Screws and Fasteners World, Balfour Avenue and Palm Beach Street, has those hard-to-find fasteners for you right now. You can find stainless steel regular hex, carriage bolts, galvanized bolts, threaded rods, nails, self-tap screws, sex bolts, anchor bolts, turnbuckles, masonry tools, hand tools, and weed whacker strings. Check out the rope selection and car body fasteners too. Special orders are welcome. It's your #1 fastener store. Screws and Fasteners World, Balfour Avenue and Palm Beach Streets. Call 326-1976.
Breakfast just got better at Wendy's. Introducing the Breakfast Biggie Bag. Enjoy a double sausage muffin with 2 square sausage patties, a freshly cracked egg, and cheese served on a toasted English muffin, a medium waffle fries, and an orange juice for only $5.25, VAT inclusive. Add an apple pie for just $1 more.
Say what?
At Wendy's, better breakfast is all day. Offers valid in participating locations. Wendy's, different inside and out.
I used to think of the bank as my personal ATM machine. If I wanted a new car, new furniture, a weekend trip to Miami, no problem. Just max out the credit card or top up my loan. I was a big baller until I realized that 75% of my salary was going to pay back all those loans. Fidelity's personal financial coaching was the best solution. Fidelity gave me a plan with a debt consolidation loan that has a built-in savings that pays 5% interest. I now only have one low monthly payment plus money in my pocket. Give Fidelity Bank a call at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in any of Fidelity's locations, or visit a website at fidelitygroup.com.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Wake up, it's a new day. Wake up, it's a new day.
Good morning and welcome to a special edition of Morning Blend Business. Welcome back to our Morning Blend listeners. Once again, I'm Dwight Strachan along with Laverne Gardner. We've been talking about some special research at the University of the Bahamas looking at corporal punishment, and we're going to, in a bit, talk about the research on marital rape. This was part of research entitled Unwanted Sexual Intercourse and Long-Term Relationships in the Bahamas. We'll get to that in a bit, but our guests are William Fielding and University of the Bahamas. We've been having a great conversation so far, and we're getting a lot of text messages based on what we've talked about so far with corporal punishment. And folks, you can continue to text us, 422-4796, and call in 323-6232, 325-4316. 325-4259. Tweet us, Facebook us, text us, 422-4796. We've got a call here. Let's take this call, and then we want to get to some of the text messages. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Dwight.
Good morning.
Morning to your guest. So, listen, one, I'm a Christian. I question the study. I put these questions rhetorically. I wonder if these guys believe in the God of the Bible, the one who are pushing the study. Secondly, I wonder if where the funding is coming from. I suspect the funding is coming from an entity that is trying to get rid of it, which to me is biased. So the questions can be skewed to get the answer that they want. I have been punished. I lead a decent life, never been in prison, married, 4 children. I punish my kids up to a certain point, so I choose to stop as they get older. Now, I have an older boy. He's 16. He challenged my wife yesterday. I wasn't there. My wife had to put, and that stopped it. You know, he put his hand in his face. The concern I have is that we have to use the appropriate punishment to match what the challenge is. Now, I was in there, and my wife is more firm beaten than I am. I have to get to a point. People say don't do it when you're angry. So, but I get to a point after if you don't listen after an extreme amount of time, then I'll use it because I try not to. And I don't abuse my kids. My kids have never been to the doctor. I understand that can occur, but I am sure that's in a very small instance. I've had our relatives who've been beaten, and we lead from a societal point of view a decent life. I think those of us who beat, that biblically, we're trying, because we hold that it's because we believe that, one, it does address the issue right before us. And the lady said, you have to teach behavior. But in most instances, these kids knew what they were doing were wrong. And after one or two warnings, they were already told what was wrong. And now the punishment came. Just as in society, we put persons in prison. Look, they may get a warning and they may get on release without fine. But if they persist, the judge will say, no, I didn't warn you twice or give you that. So now you're going to spend some time. And in our case, we as Bahamians punish those. And so I really end with this. I do not have faith in the study.
Okay, before you go, what part of the study don't you have faith in?
It appears from when I listened to the man, he said they're in school and he see that the school now is changing their policy on punishment. And that's why I am convinced that when E.J. Bo punished us, we had a fear, which not a fear like he couldn't do. E.J. Bo was my principal. Salmadine was my principal. These persons who are in our society represented the epitome of what we should aim for. And they handed down punishment with the belt, with a stick. I don't hate them. I don't go out and kill other people because I got beaten. That's garbage. I believe that we have sin that's inherent in us, so I disagree with the punishment with the aim of trying to get out of the school, then eventually punish parents now who they didn't say that, but they only mentioned the school, and he said he was glad that they're seeing the school trying to reduce it. That's what I'm saying. Get from him. Like I said, I'd like to know who's funding the study and this liberal view that goes against the values that we have, and make it seem that we are so bad as people when we punish our kids, when there's so much more issues that this money and this funds could have been directed to rather than worrying about parents. I believe that the guys who are in prison, I think those were, of course you're going to find out a lot of them, but they did not, the environment had much more effect, I would guarantee you, than the punishment that their parents. The environment had much more effect on why they choose to go where they go, and that's why we may be different than Switzerland or Sweden or whatever, who may not punish their kids as much, because their environments are different. Okay, and so I really disagree with these studies that they continue to push, especially foreigners, and then a lot of Bahamians are now grabbing onto it. And UB has become now the bastion in this society now of these liberal thinking so that they can get funds, and I really don't like it.
Wow. Okay. Thanks. All right. Thank you very much. Some harsh words there, William Fielding and Namby Hall Campbell Dean. How do you respond to that? So many things. Well, the funding thing. If you want to tackle that one.
Yes, I can answer that. There was no outside funding for this. This piece of research rose organically from what we had learned from others done. So this is not being propelled by any outside influence. This is simply a study to try and find out why it is that people are telling us what they believe, what they're doing. So I don't. There is no outside agenda that we are responding to.
Mm-hmm. And to some of the other aspects of what he's saying, that the college is overly liberal, and I don't know. How do you respond to that? No, the university. Sorry, I'm an old person, so you know how it goes.
Well, I would like to respond because I appreciate the caller's critical inquiry in regards to the funding of the study, like trying to decide out if there is a bias that might be at play in the results. But I would also encourage the caller as well as a wider public to look up the articles and read the articles for themselves in the Journal of Bahamian Studies, because you can disagree with the interpretation of the results, but we are only reporting what the results are. I don't think anyone on the call today has said corporal punishment is good or corporal punishment is bad. Simply reporting the surveys of the questions that were asked. And so you are free to make your own interpretations of the studies, but I think that you should try and read the studies in full yourself so that you can determine how you want to best use the data.
All right. So that was going to be one of my questions. Caller, we'll get to you in a second. But so what was the overall objective, really? And what are you hoping to, what message are you hoping to send? Is it just to let people know what's what? What were you hoping to achieve?
Well, as I said at the beginning, from previous studies that we had done, there seemed to be a number of people who had quoted biblical sources for the justification for using corporal punishment. And so we wanted to investigate that further. And we had done a previous study, which was published last year, to look at people's knowledge, attitudes, and practices towards corporal punishment. And the practices part we had some information on before, but and also their attitudes. But people demonstrated limited knowledge about some of the issues, long-term issues of corporal punishment, because the literature shows from around the world, and is very heavily is very consistent on this, is that there are potentially long-term detrimental effects of corporal punishment. And so it's got to be used very thoughtfully, very carefully, and very sparingly. And you've probably all seen some of the videos that have circulated on social media of a child being hit by somebody with a belt or something. Clearly, that sort of use of corporal punishment is not going to be very helpful. And it puts the child or the youth at risk of going into an adult who is probably not going to reach their potential and may not make as positive a contribution to society as they may have otherwise done.
Yeah. All right, let's take this call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Morning, Dwight. Trust all is well. Good morning to your guest in studio.
Hi.
Dwight, for one, as far as the previous call is concerned, many of us can relate our sentiments because many of us share those sentiments. Corporal punishment in terms of abuse, whereas we do agree that is, I would believe that is not the original intent of any parent or any person to inflict harm or pain, physical harm or pain on the children, but it's an act of discipline. Sometimes it's a very thin line. You move from that and you go over to the abuse side. Sometimes that does happen, but that is, to me, it is not something that is really the norm. Most oftentimes, if we can see right now, even in today's society, compared to a lot of us who have grown up in the 50s, 60s, and even early 70s, the discipline aspect, what we see today, is paled by comparison. Many of us got spanked. Many of us got whipped by a belt. Many of us even got whipped were hit by other things. And I appreciate the gentleman who stated quite clearly that there's no real study to determine whether being spanked was a positive against not being spanked turned out to be a positive. All this stuff basically depends on, firstly, the environment that the child is in, what kind of message. I grew up in a home of seven kids. And I can tell you, anyone who has a large family would know that each child has their own temperament and everything. Some would, just by speaking to them, they would adhere to what is being required of them. Whereas you have to get a little rough and a little tumble with one or two of them to get them to get the message. So the dynamic of discipline is going to be different from child to child. But the mere fact that, as the gentleman simply mentioned, that there is no study to determine whether the method used was a positive one in comparison to not using that method and getting the same result. I mean, I would like to see perhaps a further study being done to prove or disprove that the method used by a parent or by someone in authority would have been a positive move or a negative move. And, it's just so unfortunate in closing that with the relaxation, and this is the realization of a lot of us as adults today, after having gone through those processes growing up ourselves, it is kind of mind-boggling of the right, even that a lot of parents today, even as simple as spanking a child, sometimes it's chastised, being put before the court, being accused of being abusive. But yet the child runs rampant. The child does all kinds of stuff. The child goes out here and gets himself into problems or even actually kills somebody. Then you turn around and still want to blame the parent for the child not being disciplined or in the manner that should have brought about a society where we have peace and love in our society. And that's my contribution this morning. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks very much for bringing it forward, and I would like to hear more about the studies going forward in the other dynamics.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. I hear a lot of contradictions in what you're saying. I don't know if our professors do, but would you care to respond to that?
Yeah, I think trying to figure out where to start. I think that there are studies that we could probably look at, maybe not necessarily conducted in the Bahamas, that do a comparison. I think it might be difficult, however, to find a large enough sample size, right, of persons that have never received corporal punishment to do an actual comparison with the outcomes of those who have received corporal punishment. And then that would need to be a longitudinal study. And as William stated, we are not really funded for a lot of the research that we do. So these types of things require resources that are not always readily available. I think one of the studies that the caller might be interested in, however, is the Shane Brennan study that William mentioned earlier, because the issue that we are finding is not necessarily, or that particular study is talking about people defining what abuse is, right? So a lot of people are saying, well, I was corporally punished and I was not abused. Mm-hmm. But in that study, we're seeing that abuse is only recognized when persons are left with bruises or marks or actual cuts to the skin. Mm-hmm. And there are levels of abuse. There are also types of abuse. So court can be enacted and leave psychological scars that are not going to be seen by the naked eye. And these are the types of things that we are seeing need to be understood and also taken into account when we determine how and when and where we are going to punish our youth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just have to think about about the rights of children as well, and what we consider as acceptable behavior towards children as opposed to adults. I think a lot of people have issues with adults being corporally punished for something they did that others had an issue with, or especially someone in an elder care facility. If you were to spank them because they broke something or soiled their diapers, people would say that's wrong. You can't do that. You see that so clearly, but it's a different story when we're dealing with underage people, which is curious.
That have rights too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. One final call on this, and we need to move on to the other issue. But good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
And good morning to your guests.
Good morning.
Listen, I travel we all as being travel a lot to America, and I have seen the way lack of corporal punishment or spanking or whatever they want to call it in the home can turn out, because I've seen some kids cursing their parents out, and I'm talking about throwing a hissy fit, and I'm to the point where they are abusive to the parents. But because they are small children, what can be done? Nothing, because they are little children. However, if the parents were to say, take them and give them, you don't have to be abusive, but because my grandma taught me, you never spank a child in anger. You wait until you calm down. You sit them down, explain what it is and why it is you're going to spank them, and you give them one of those spanks like that. It's not abusive. It's literally just teaching them something, I guess, with a little more force. But I wouldn't want my children to turn out like the way I've seen a lot of those American kids are. Because if their parents miss and raise a belt for them, the first thing they want to do is call the police on the parents. So I'm concerned about the idea of lack of corporal punishment. I've told my teachers, my children do something that's deserving of a spanking, give them a spanking, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. A couple of text messages before we take a break and get back to the other studies. This person says, I personally think we can't talk about corporal punishment among black people without addressing the negative effects that slavery had and continues to have on us. Anybody care to respond to that?
I think that the caller or the texter has a point. A number of the callers talked about the environment and that the environment is different, and our environment is one that was birthed out of the traumas of enslavement and colonization, both of which were very violent events by definition, right? They incurred violence. And so people, learn how to parent from the way that they were parented. And so some of the tools that we have learned might have been useful when you were placed in positions where if you did not immediately do what someone said, you could be met with further punishment or death, right? We are not in those contexts anymore. And so we may need to re-examine the tools that we use and the tools that we were taught to use, right? As the caller previous said, anecdotally about children who are not receiving corporal punishment. Anecdotally, I know a number of parents who do not use corporal punishment, and their children are beautiful and honor roll students. So I think we just need to really examine how and when and what is our goal when we are engaging with this corporal punishment.
All right. A text here. I'm being abused men and those in prison a result of corporal punishment, or is it a result of a lack of love? The Bible tells us not to discipline our children out of anger. I also agree with the guest about the punishment has to include instruction or corrective instruction and love. Personally, my children are more emotionally damaged from the things I have fussed them about than things I have beaten them for. For example, my oldest child tells me that he doesn't like to read because of how I berated him in the past for making mistakes. He has never complained about me beating him, though. I have always beat him and explained why I did it, that I love him and given him corrective actions. When I have fussed, I don't do so in love. Ooh, okay. So,
well, the direct question that was asked about sort of love and people ending up in prison, I don't think we've got any data to support that. But certainly in the book Violence from the Bahamas, there's a chapter there that compares the experiences of, as best we were able to from the data available, over a number of different aspects of violence in their lives compared to people who aren't in prison. And there's a whole, I suppose, perhaps best described as cocktail of events that where there are elevated risks of prisoners being subject to various types of violence, which the man in the street is not. So you can see other people talked about environment, and that's clearly very important. I mean, in one of the previous studies that was done, you can see that the concerns that the children have about all sorts of things relates to what's going on in the household. And so that environment in the household has all sorts of effects on the child, not only just whether they get corporally punished or not. So there is obviously an environmental issue there, which is very important.
This text here, my mom punished her 5 children. All are still alive, never in prison. My aunt had 2 children, no punished prison, and they're both now dead. My son is 32, never in prison. Okay. There are going to be people making all those type of...
What's important when we do these studies, and this contrasts with typically what we do as individuals, is that when we do a study, we're looking to see where the weight of evidence is. And if you think of it, it's a bit like a train. There has to be a first carriage and there has to be a last carriage. And we have a tendency to focus on the extremes. But when we're doing a study, particularly when we're doing a survey, we're looking to see where is the weight of evidence, what is the general pattern that emerges, realizing that in that pattern there will be a first and there will be a last. And we do have we actually have an expression saying the exception proves the rule. And so it's very easy for us to focus on the extreme and therefore try and find fault with where the weight of evidence is. But the weight of evidence is where it is, but there obviously must be a first and a last. Right. And so we need to guard a little bit against that, maybe.
Where can people read the study? How can they find out more about it?
So this study is, they can actually Google it if you go and just type in the name, Bahamian Justification for Using Corporal Punishment. That should come up on Google fairly easily, or they can also type in International Journal of Bahamian Studies, and that will take them to the webpage.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other study, a preliminary study on unwanted sexual intercourse within long-term relationships in the Bahamas. We're talking with William Fielding and Naomi Hall Campbell Dean with the University of the Bahamas. This is Morning Blend Business, a special edition. We'll be back after these messages. Stay with us.
We know how important collecting your money can be to the success of your business. Start your relationship with Fidelity today so that we can show you the many options available to you with our merchant services. From click and pay options online to merchant terminals and e-commerce options. We're here to help your business succeed. For more details, speak to one of our business development officers at 356-7764 in Nassau or 352-6676 in Freeport. Visit our website at fidelitygroup.com or visit any of our branches.
The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center is here to help small businesses throughout the entire Bahamas. To better serve you, we've made it easier to contact us. Call 461-7232, WhatsApp 359-0626 or 359-2394. Email helpdesk@spdcbahamas.com or submit a ticket when you visit our help center at accessaccelerator.org. The Access Accelerator, empowering small business.
The Water and Sewage Corporation advises its customers and residents residing in the area of Westlake Boulevard and Coral Lake Subdivision, inclusive of all side streets, that due to new water main installation, which will commence on Thursday, September 22nd, 2022, and continue for 8 weeks, customers may experience interruption in water supply between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily. Also during this time, there will be road closure and detour around the work area. Non-resident motorists are asked to avoid the area as much as possible. The corporation apologizes for any inconvenience caused and appreciates your support as they work to improve their level of service.
Ready to save? You can put $100 into the CFAL Savings Express Plan and make sure your money keeps growing. Earn interest on your savings while you're sleeping, eating, or standing in line at the bank. Ready to invest? Start by putting $1,000 into our mutual funds, too. Because at CFAL, your interest is our interest. Visit CFAL.com to start now. CFAL, growing wealth for future generations of Bahamians. The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center is here to help small businesses throughout the entire Bahamas. To better serve you, we've made it easier to contact us. Call 461-7232, WhatsApp 359-0626, or 359-2394, email helpdesk@spdcbahamas.com, or submit a ticket when you visit our help center at accessaccelerator.org. The Access Accelerator, empowering small business.
If you were exposed to COVID-19, have symptoms, or traveled recently, get tested so that you can have peace of mind about your status. Just visit one of our convenient locations on New Providence at the University of the Bahamas or Golden Gates Plaza, weekdays 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Eleuthera at the Three Island Dock, Mondays through Thursdays 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Sundays 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. On Exuma at the Regatta Park, weekdays 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., Saturdays 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sundays 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. On Abaco at Maxwell Food Store, Saturdays 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The COVID-19 test results will be ready in 15 minutes, and the tests are free.
This message is brought to you by PAHO WHO and the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
It's time for your morning business report, brought to you by CFAL. Accusing the Davis administration of being arrogant, East Grand Bahama MP Kwesi Thompson, who is also the Shadow Minister of Finance for the FNM, the opposition, urging the government to listen to the business community when it comes to measures to protect the public against inflation. He was contributing to debate in the House of Assembly on the resolution to raise the minimum wage. Prime Minister Philip Davis announced on October 11th the addition of 38 new food items to the price control list, as well as 14 new prescription and non-prescription drugs. His announcement coming days after BPL announced a fuel charge increase for those who consume more than 800 kilowatt hours. Since those announcements, there have been widespread pushback from the business community, lamenting why they consider heavy-handed policy changes all at once. You can read more about what Thompson is saying in today's Guardian business section. Pharmacies and grocery stores have been enduring for months. That's according to Bahamas Petroleum Dealers Association Vice President Vasco Bastian. He says as the price of oil per barrel skyrocketed at the start of the year, retail petroleum dealers pleaded with the government to increase their profit margins from the fixed rate of 54 cents for gasoline and 34 cents on diesel. Bastian says it's been months of waiting since the BPDA's initial meeting with the government, and gas station operators in New Providence continue to suffer. Government revenue improved by $59 million year over year at the end of September, standing at $196.2 million. The Ministry of Finance saying in a statement yesterday that this improvement in revenue, alongside contracted aggregate expenditure of $52.7 million during the month, resulted in a deficit of $22 million. That represents a $73.5 million decrease from the deficit of $95.6 million during the same period in 2021. And ahead of its mission to the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP27, in Egypt, the government adding 50 new electric vehicles from Easy Car Sales to its fleet. Easy Car Sales co-owner Pia Farmer says the addition demonstrates that the administration is committed to reducing harmful CO2 emissions. Seeking to facilitate a reduction in the nation's carbon footprint, Prime Minister Philip Davis announced a reduction on the duty on electric vehicles with a value of 17 under to 10%, adding that the duty for vehicles over 70,000 would be at 25%. In your Market Watch, recapping trading on the BISX from Wednesday, your market movers, Colina Holdings moving 1,100 shares, closing up 27 cents to $8.50. Commonwealth Bank moving 15,550, down 3 cents to $3.17. Consolidated Water unchanged at $3.67. Emir Incorporated unchanged at $9.07. The BISX All Share Index closing at 2,583.54, down 0.97. That's your Market Watch, and that is your morning business report, brought to you by CFAL, growing wealth for future generations.
That's a step too far. Do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? Do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry?
We are back here with Morning Blend Business on Guardian Radio 96.9. Dwight Strachan along with Laverne Gardner. We are talking with the University of the Bahamas about studies that they've been doing. This one, now we're moving on, dealing with rape in long-term relationships, sexual abuse in long-term relationships. It is entitled A Preliminary Study on Unwanted Sexual Intercourse Within Long-Term Relationships in the Country. Our guests are William Fielding and Nambi Hall Campbell Dean. And tell us about this study and what led to this one and how many people were involved in this. Unmute your mics for us.
Sorry. Yes, good morning and thank you. This study arose from a previous study that the university had looked at, where we had looked at lifetime experiences of unwanted sexual intercourse and abuse. This one focused a little bit more closely on those people who were in what we called long-term relationships, those people who were in a relationship of at least 1 year. And the idea of this was to eliminate those instances of sexual abuse that might have occurred off relationship in a very short-term relationship. So these were people who were in sort of a more steady relationship. Mm-hmm. And so we had about we had over 3,000 people who initially participated in this study, and we ended up being able to analyze the results from about 2,845 people. And this again was done on the internet during COVID times. And so we were interested in finding out people's attitudes towards marital rape. Should it be made illegal? But obviously we're recognizing that there is a parallel conversation. The lawyers will tell us that there's no such thing as marital rape, but I think society understands that the action of rape can occur within a marriage as well as outside of a marriage. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to see what the differences were between men and women of different age groups in their attitudes towards that. And we also wanted to look at behaviors of concern of particularly of women in long-term relationships. So, for example, did they have sex with their partner out of fear of that partner? Had that partner been physically violent? They ended up agreeing to having sex with that person again, essentially against their will, because of some of these pressures that can be brought to bear on the female.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what sorts of questions were asked, and what were the numbers? What were the findings?
All right. So when it comes to if you like recognition that a man can rape his wife, the group of people who were least likely to agree to that statement that a husband can rape his wife was the older male, the males in the 55 or over age group. In the other age groups for the males, there was a general consensus that yes, a husband can rape his wife. As we can imagine with the female group, the numbers were higher, but again, the recognition that a husband can rape his wife was least in the older female group. And again, attitudes towards whether marital rape should be outlawed. Again, it was the older males who were least likely to support making that act within marriage illegal, compared to the males and females in the other age groups. And so we 7% or 8% of the females had sex out of fear of their partner, so the person was threatening or angry towards them, so they were obviously intimidated by that person, and they had also had sexual intercourse when their partner was mentally unable to give consent, and of course that would be legally rape, because of course you need the consent of both partners. So there are some behaviors of concern which contribute to women engaging in sexual intercourse against their will, and of course an essential part of engaging in sexual intercourse is that consent, and if consent is not freely and willingly given, then that's when the difficulty arises.
Right. Wow. All right. So, what is the main takeaway from this study, and how we should analyze what we've learned from this?
Well, I think that two issues that we can take away is that there is a substantial difference in recognition that rape can occur within marriage. There is a disagreement within society over that. There are a number of women who end up engaging in sexual intercourse against their will, and so these people are being, if you like, coerced into having sex. And of course, the law currently protects single women if they feel that they have been raped, but the law does not protect the married woman if she gets raped. And so we need to be, obviously conscious of those difficulties. And the overall figures were the people who had ever been married. A number of them reported that they had been raped at some stage by their long-term partner. But the figure that we got from this study, which is slightly different to a more recent study, but not that much different, is in line with what has been determined in studies overseas. But I think that one of the important things in this study, of course, is and what is relevant to the topic, to the conversation that's being had, is that we do have a group of women in society who are protected by the law because they are in long-term relationships, which we would call marriage. And that contrasts with the other group of women who are in long-term relationships who are not in a married relationship. So there is a difference between those two groups.
Nayabi Hall Campbell Dean, anything jump out at you here, or any surprises, or this is what you pretty much expected? And are you muted as well? Did we lose her? I think you're muted. Oh, well, okay.
So sorry.
There you go.
I would say, yes, that I think that I was definitely alarmed by the rates that were demonstrated. I think that these numbers are significant and things that we should take into account. I think, however, that we need to recognize that the theme between if we were able to draw one, is abuse, right? With the previous study and this study. And one of the findings that also came out in this study was between women who were coerced to have sex in their marriage and levels of psychological abuse and their overall psychological abuse scores. So I think that we really, in our country, need to sit and look at how we are defining violence, and note how it is going to come out in various areas, whether we're being consciously aware of it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that applies to both of the things we're talking about today, right? Corporal punishment and our sexual relationships. That's quite something. Let's take this call. We've got some interesting text messages coming in, but let's take this call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well.
Okay. I'm 56 years old now. When my son was about 8 months, we went on a trip to Atlanta, Georgia, and on the way back, he learned to walk. And in the airport, he was very cranky. And I spanked him because he was, running up and down and crying uncontrollably. So I spanked him because he was sleepy. And it was some people around me, they're looking, and said, "What? Are you going to call the police? Go call the police. Because if the police come and the police lock me up, they're going to keep my child because I know what it takes to rule my kids." And to this day, I just moved to Canada. My oldest daughter had a problem in school one time, and I beat her. And I think I beat her too bad. From that day, I didn't beat my kids because growing up, my father used to make us pick our own tambourine switch. My mother used to beat us with drop cord. And I didn't think it was child abuse. When I stole money from my mother and my grandmother, my hand went over the stove. When I got tired of it, I stopped thieving. Never went to jail, never was locked up. So it depends. And my younger daughter, I sat down and I had a talk with her when she was about 18. I said, "Look, you're going the wrong way." And I said, if I used to beat you all the way my parents used to beat us, it would be a different story. So she asked me what I meant. So I told her what used to happen to me. So she looked me straight in the eye and said, "That's child abuse, and you ain't called the police." So I said, end of conversation. But it didn't make neither one of them or me a worse person. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. I hear trauma, but I don't know.
I think stories like that. Youth. Sometimes we think things are normal because that's what we know, right? If all you know is that, then that's normal to you. I'm horrified by the story personally because that's not normal to me.
Not at all.
But if you are raised in an environment where that is how discipline is meted out all of the time, and so for you it's normal, off air I shared with you, Dwight, saying that I remember when I was younger, I went to visit my grandparents and my grandfather was disciplining one of his sons. And to this day, it was probably the most horrific thing that I have seen. But the adults who were there, they weren't moved by it. They just was like, okay, this is what needs to be done. And so, it's everybody's norm. Your experiences that you see becomes your normal. And so you're not impacted by it.
Yeah.
The way that somebody else might be.
I tell you, if you put a prisoner's hand over a prisoner of war's hand over a stove like that, the UN will be knocking it a war crime. It sounds like. I don't understand how, but we think that's fine to do that to a child. Okay, I hear you.
One to add, because I really appreciate that contribution, Laverne, in terms of the use of the word normal, because I think that is what we operate on, right? What is normal. But I think it's really important to note that what is normal is not the same as what is healthy, and that we should be trying to figure out what is healthy. From the studies, we've recognized that in large part, we do not understand what is healthy in regards to abuse, physical abuse with children, and that our standards in regards to that health are a bit warped. And so I think that in the same way we had to redefine our normal in COVID, it's time for us to redefine our normal in how we are disciplining, teaching, and I'm not even going to say punishing, right? But how we are disciplining and teaching our youth as to what is healthy, because we see that what we are doing is not working. I mean, I think that's clear. So it's time.
Caller, we'll get to you in a second. This very long text here. This person says they are enjoying the show, but I would like Mr. Fielding and Dr. Camp survey on how many people in the Bahamas still want to get married. Can they please, because zero in on the millennials and the Gen Zs. I want to see how many Bahamian men without guilt or pressure from the church and family or society genuinely want to get married. I put it to you, the majority of Bahamian women still want to get married, but not the Bahamian men. I don't care much for church, yet I put in that, but I say that getting married in the Bahamas is still a thing because of pressure or influence from the church. Take the church and other religions or religious entities out of the picture, and marriage would probably have been extinct years ago. Is that a type of study that UB would conduct, or is that for the church to handle? What say you on that one?
Well, that's certainly something that could be looked into, and I think that might be quite interesting. I mean, obviously, what is interesting with marriage, of course, is that there is a distinction between the state and the church. You have to be married in the eyes. Well, you have to be married in the eyes of the state first and foremost to be married. If you elect to be married within a church, well, that's in a sense an addition. But if you're not married in the eyes of the state, you're not actually married. That's something to overlook. The state defines your marital status. It's the state who actually dissolves a marriage. So the state has quite a big say as to what your marital status is. And so that would be interesting to look at, not only whether you're willing to be married, but whether that marriage is, if you like, just a civil marriage, or is it a civil and a religious marriage? I think there would be several elements that could be pulled out from that.
Odd text here. This person says, why do people come on with only one side of a study? Get both sides, I don't know what they mean, and then bring your report to us. But this half report is nonsense and bias. Pathetic. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Maybe you, do you have any idea what they could mean by that?
Maybe they're seeing the other perspective of the research, other views. But I again, William has pointed out that you can find these studies in full online, so you can read what the results are. And in a study, you're generally only going to ask one set of questions. That is a methodology that is standard across the board.
Mm-hmm. Right. We are out of time, but let's see. Can we really squeeze just really quickly, caller? You have just a few seconds.
No, that's okay then, Dwight.
You sure? You sure? You could get it in really quick.
No, what I have to say will take a little while, so I'll hold off for another time.
Okay. All right. Well, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Sorry to have you holding. All right. So again, remind folks where they can find these studies and read for themselves all the sides of what came out of it. Let us know the information.
Yes. So you can, if you could go to Google Scholar or just to Google and you type in International Journal of Bahamian Studies. That will take you to the webpage, and you will be able to download not only these studies, but a large number of other studies that relate to corporal punishment and also unwanted sexual intercourse or consent in sexual intercourse. So you will be able, and there are quite a few studies that the university has undertaken looking at violence in various aspects of Bahamian life.
And as you said earlier, a whole lot more of this coming from the University of the Bahamas. And every year we're expecting to see more results from studies like this in the Journal of Bahamian Studies. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And we hope that obviously as we expand our programs to include graduate programs, there will be graduate studies that will also be able to be talked about as well.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing this. We really appreciate you, William Fielding and Dr. Nyambi Hall Campbell Dean. Always great conversations with you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Mike, can I just before we go also highlight how significant it is that this journal is an open source journal. The majority of academic journals you have to pay to gain access to. So I just want to highlight the work that is really being done around keeping this research about our community open, free, and available for all to access.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Thank you again. And Laverne Gardner, thank you. Always a pleasure having you with me.
Likewise.